Welcome back to Trust Your Eyes. It was a huge round 13 and just a couple games split 12th to 5th on the ladder, while the Sydney Swans are charging clear of the pack, sitting on top. Starting off with a live reaction from the King's birthday game between Collingwood and Melbourne. There's no prompt here, so we're just going to get straight into it. Well, how could you not be impressed with Collingwood? I thought they were quite outstanding for the entirety of the match. The guys they're bringing in, like Nathan Kruger, who starred with 3 goals, are playing their roles. They're still missing Mason Cox, Jamie Elliott, Brodie Meyer checking in the midfield, DeGoey, Mitchell and Pendlebury, but they're surviving and playing well. But I thought the big difference in the game was the speed of Collingwood and the overall class and polish going inside 50. We know it's a weak point of Melbourne, and I thought comparatively to the Magpies, they just looked the class above, even with a weaker forward line, missing some of their stars. So if you're a Collingwood fan, I think your team is in a great spot right now. Hopefully you can get some of your guys back. You might be able to make a top 4 push at this stage of the season, and once you get fully fit. With Melbourne, things are never as good or as bad as they seem. I'm not going to talk about the forward line because everyone knows it's been a weak point for a few seasons. But that midfield is starting to look a little thin. I think Viney's out of form. Petrarca is obviously out now with that rib and probably will miss a few weeks. And then Oliver's not the same player. So it's going to be a bit of a teething few months, I think, for Melbourne. I don't know if they can make the top 8, but they need to get fit and they need to get that midfield back and get their defence back in order to have a shot at making the top 8. Carlton were too efficient up forward for Essendon on King's birthday eve. Carlton have won 3 in a row, while the Bombers have dropped back-to-back games. Are you more excited for Carlton or worried for Essendon? Well, right now I am more worried for Essendon. I agree with what Brad Scott said in his post-game press conference that the base of their game, the way they want to play in terms of their contest, is in an okay position. But clearly there are forward line issues, which they didn't have at the start of the season. It's kind of switched around with what Brad Scott was saying. They were efficient in the first part of this year, but weren't getting many entries. And that swap, now they're getting a lot of entries, but aren't as efficient. I think the one man to point at is Peter Wright. He's kicked 1 goal in the last 3 games, cannot take a contested mark to save his life, and it's really hurting others around him. I think Kyle Langford's carrying some sort of injury, maybe related to that hip, and Harry Jones is really a number 2 or 3 forward, and with the way Peter Wright's playing, he's almost becoming the number 1 forward, which isn't a good thing. The rucks, I thought Goldstein was actually okay, but just got completely outplayed by De Koning. In terms of his athletic ability to get those clearances. Goldstein still got plenty of the ball and was effective, but obviously he's a fair bit older than Tom De Koning. And it's why they need Parrish and Draper back quickly for that midfield, which has fallen down the clearance rankings, was one of the best units at the start of the year, but it's just faded away a bit. It's not disastrous, but it's not as dominant as it was. So I'm starting to get a little concerned with Essendon. I think their baseline performance is okay, but that forward line is looking to become a bit of a concern. And quickly with the Blues, I think they're clearly the second best team right now. Really mature performance from a team that's starting to really believe in themselves. That forward line and that connection is looking good. So I'm very impressed with the Blues, and they're definitely the biggest challenger of the Swans right now. Sydney are now 8 points clear on top of the AFL. That dominant midfield trio start again in a 35-point comeback against Geelong. Where does each team sit in the premiership race? Well, clearly Sydney are the number 1 seed, and that trio is having such a big say in the competition. Thought Heaney and Warner in the middle parts of the game got them going, and Goulden finished off Geelong on that wing, just got so much of the ball, kicked it. An unbelievable goal at the end after Chad Warner, really put the game away. They're quick, skillful, that defence is strong, and a guy who's been playing really well is Joel Amati, kicked 3 goals, and along with Tom Papley, who got into some form with 4 goals. They're looking pretty ominous right now. But on the other side, I'm just about out on the Cats as a premiership contender. Tom Hawkins, just not up to it. This will be his last season, sadly. Can barely move and is really a non-threat in the forward line. And then Jeremy Cameron, he's getting more of the ball than ever, but also kicking less goals than ever. Only his first season in the AFL has had a worse return. So that potency in the forward line with their 2 superstars just isn't there. The midfield can't be trusted. And I know they're getting Dangerfield and Guthrie back in but they're part of the problem. Can they stay fit? You'd say it's actually probably unlikely in recent history, and such a vulnerable position on the field when those two guys aren't there. I still think they can win a final or two. They might even finish top four, but I don't think there's any way they're beating Sydney, who are the big premiership threat at this stage. Is there a side hotter than Hawthorn right now? Their 6-point win over GWS sits them 12th, and they are just 8 points outside the top 8. Can you see the Hawks making finals after a 0-5 start? Well, the simple answer is yes, but it's going to be a logjam in that bottom part of the top 8. But their fixture is actually pretty friendly. They verse Richmond 2 more times, including next week, and verse West Coast and North Melbourne. Now, I don't like doing this, but I'm going to give them 4 wins there, so that'll get them up to 10 wins. And they're probably going to need to win 3 of their remaining 6 games, which is 50%. So it'll be interesting to see if they can. They're versing a lot of top 8 sides and have a few away fixtures, but focusing on the field, and that midfield has been humming ever since Will Day has come back. He was one of the best players on the ground against the Giants. It's freed up Newcombe and Warple to get back to their clearance best, and they also have that outside polish that Will Day brings. And the defence has been really strong. Frost has been good. We know Sicily's always great. And I think the big improver has been Jack Scrimshaw as that third tall, and with rebounders like Impey and Carl Amon around him, it just elevated the whole team. Now the rucks are a concern because Reeves got subbed out with a back injury, but Lloyd Meek I think should be returning when they play their next matchup. So it's been small improvements across the board for the Hawks. Nothing really major in terms of a player's specific role or numbers, but their small increments have got them a lot of wins, and they're well in the mix for the finals. The 2 other Saturday games were decided by contentious free kicks. Elliot Yeo was caught holding the ball, while Mac Andrew was penalised for holding onto Max King. Were the free kicks there? To me, both were absolutely not there. Now, starting with the Mac Andrew one, the AFL did come out and say it was wrong. Just watching the replay a few times, they're just scrapping with each other. It happens 100 times per game. There's absolutely nothing to see there. In fact, you could have paid a free kick against Max King first because he kind of got Mac Andrew above the shoulder. So it was just a horrible call. And then the other one, to me, this was worse. Now, there was some debate about this one, and the AFL did say that they got the call correct. But Elliot Yeo didn't dive on the ball. He simply picked it up, was going to his feet, and got tackled. He had no prior opportunity, and he didn't drag the ball in, because when you do that, you're on the ground. He wasn't on the ground. He was getting up to try and dispose of it. What else could he have done? When he picks the ball up, he has to instantly handball it or scrap kick it. It was unrealistic. The umpire got it wrong. I don't know how the AFL ticked it off. And to me, both of the decisions have kind of summed up the AFL umpiring in the last month or two. It hasn't been very good. People are getting frustrated. The fans, the coaches, and clearly the players on the field have had enough. So hopefully it improves, but there's not much we can really do at this point. Brisbane got a much-needed win at Marvel on Friday night against the Western Bulldogs. Neil started with 38 disposals and 2 goals, and Eric Hipwood kicked a much-needed bag of 6. From their next month of games, what record will the Lions have? Well, their next month is St Kilda at the Gabba, Port Adelaide away, then Melbourne and the Adelaide Crows at the Gabba again. I'm going to say they go 3 wins and 1 loss, although this next game against St Kilda will be a lot tougher because they've won 2 in a row. They're not in outstanding form, but defensively they're getting back to their best. And I feel like it could be a frustrating game, but obviously you're going to back Brisbane at home. Still not convinced by them, but I did like that move with Jared Berry in the midfield, tag Bontempelli when it mattered. I thought Bont got the better of him in the second half and got forward to kick a few goals, but when the game was on the line, he clearly won. I hope they continue doing that because their midfield has been a little thin. Neil talked about that in the post-game interview, saying our midfield's been inconsistent because all they've really had is Neil, Dunkley and McCluggage with bits and parts like Rayner having a go here and there. But Berry gives them that extra body and they can definitely cover him on the wing. They were fresh off the bye, looked sharp and beat up a pretty banged up Bulldogs side comfortably. So it's a much needed win, confidence booster. The forward line got a bit of connection. Charlie Cameron's still been a little quiet, but hopefully over this next month, the Brisbane Lions can win at least 3 games and give themselves a shot at making finals. Finally, the Adelaide Crows lost at home to Richmond. It was the upset of the round, and pressure is mounting on Matthew Nicks. Is his job safe right now? I'm going to say his job is safe, but he did seem a little defeated in the press conference post-game, and it's fair enough. Their finals hopes are essentially all over, and I think the whole club has realised that the list just isn't at the level to compete for top 8, top 4, and obviously premierships. Now, they have had some injuries, which I think is important. Riley Thilthorpe is improving a lot. He's been missed up forward. And then Taylor Walker's had his issues. And Isaac Rankin, who's been their best player, with that hamstring, has been really missed over the past few weeks. I feel like Nicks last year, and to a degree this year, has done the most with what he has. The midfield isn't dynamic. Now, you can say that he should have put Saligo and Rankin in there sooner. But then Saligo was on the wing, so who are they going to put on the wing? And then up forward, who replaces Rankin when he goes on ball? Because Rochelle just isn't getting it done. And that's a big problem. A lot of the players they've drafted, even before Nicks got there, just haven't been good enough. So it's a development and list management problem, I think. Now you can argue maybe they should have a couple more wins, but in the scheme of things, the team probably isn't good enough to contend for a premiership. Now the fans want him out, but for this stage, I think he's safe, but there definitely will be changes at the end of the season at Adelaide. Thanks for listening to Trust Your Eyes for round 13. Good luck to all your teams, and I'll be back soon.